Thank you for the opportunity. So I will be talking about the 𝐈𝐧𝐿 elephant's stakeholders today. But before I start, I'm just going to show you where we are in the landscape. So let me just see where we are down there. And those red lines would be the 𝐈𝐧𝐿 elephant range. So it's quite close to where you are. So the range is basically fenceless, which is part of the issue, and it covers 4 landowners' land, and it consists of fynbos and forest and also commercial pine plantations. Not so much anymore, but it used to. So as some of you will know, there was quite a controversy about the numbers of elephants previously. Some people believed that there was only one, and some believed that there were more elephants. So for the last 8 years, we've been camera trapping the area, surveying the area, and for the last 8 years, we basically captured only this one female elephant by herself. So yeah, and that's her. So there's one elephant, and we're still monitoring the area. So we still have cameras in the area, and it's only her. And we never receive reports of elephant dung or anything outside, outside of the elephant range. So in 2019, we went public with our elephant result, and there was quite a media response. People took it up quite a bit, probably because of the polarized opinion about the number. Now we came out and said, we found this one elephant. So there was quite a lot of media attention. It was pretty good for us. It wasn't too bad. We survived it. But then when you started looking at the Facebook social media kind of responses, it was a little bit more hostile. So some people said, what has 𝐸𝐴NParks been doing? And so these people were they're prominent in the industry who said these kind of things. So they were, I suppose, pushers. And so people were also saying, so how did 𝐸𝐴NParks allow this? And what has 𝐸𝐴NParks done? And so on. And we got quite a lot of that. Why don't you just bring a bull to mate with the female? So anybody who knows the legislation around elephants or know elephants would understand just how irresponsible that kind of idea is. So we just wanted to know what is going on in the landscape, going into a decision-making process. So what are we going to do with this? And we wanted to know what our primary, secondary, tertiary stakeholders are thinking, and who's who in the stakeholder landscape, and are they all feeling like this, or what are they thinking? So we decided to do a survey, an online survey, and also face-to-face for people who don't have internet. And we decided to do this questionnaire. And the questionnaire, basically, we set it up in a mixed way. So we had open and closed questions. And basically what we wanted to know was just some information about the respondents themselves, and then their knowledge on the topic of the 𝐈𝐧𝐿 elephant. How much do they know? Where do they get the information from? And we also asked questions around their values for elephant presence in the area, and also their expectation for introduction, or what do they want us to do, 𝐸𝐴NParks to do. So it was ethics cleared by NMU. Thank you, NMU. And then we sent it off. So the survey was quite a targeted survey, We didn't just put the link on Facebook or whatever and just hope for the best. So it was a very, very targeted survey. In previous workshops, internal workshops, we workshopped or mapped the stakeholders quite a bit. So we had a pretty good idea of who our stakeholders were regarding this issue. So we had 32 stakeholder groups, which consisted of about 318 subgroups, departments, clubs, and so on, which consisted of about 800 individuals. And it was quite a job to try and get those emails and contact details of these people. which we did, and we sent it the survey or the questionnaire via 𝐆𝐵𝐿𝐼. And we also went to people like our field people and so on, did face-to-face to whomever wanted to participate. So of those 800 emails that went out, about 300 bounced back because they were outdated or whatever. And about 500 respondents seemed to have received the email, and we got 401 responses. So it was a pretty good response. So, sorry, let me go back. So if I knew we were going to have such a big response, Bianca, I don't think we would have had 7 open questions. So we had to go and code all those open questions, and we used Atlas TI, and then we used R to just analyze the themes. So I'm going to just highlight some of the results. So this was an extremely rich database. People really wrote a lot in their responses. So it was extremely rich, and I'm just going to show you a couple of highlights. I wish I could show you everything, but we don't have time for that. So on the question, we asked respondents how important is the continued existence of an elephant population for you. So respondents answered that in the context of introduction versus not introducing more elephants. So just so you know, it was interesting, that's how they answered it. So most of them, as you can see, said it's extremely important to them. And then it sort of drops down to not at all. And then when we asked them why is it important or not important, so whatever they answered, we asked them why. And most of the respondents who wanted introduction to happen said for ecological reasons. So there are also sub-themes under this, which we don't have time to discuss, but the ecological reasons were only about 5%, were not really very relevant. Like, people had a misperception that, you know, these elephants or this elephant is only in the forest, and forest health is something's going to happen if they're not elephants anymore. But the rest of it, I'd say about 80 to 90% of those reasons were valid. People were talking about, you know, it's a species or biodiversity or umbrella species and so on and so forth. And then conservation efficiency was a little bit different, quite a bit of overlap, but conservation efficiency talked a little bit more about our responsibility as humans to do something. So it wasn't talking about specific ecological reasons. And then sense of place was quite high, and then cultural, historical. Tourism wasn't actually so high as one would have thought. And then future generations, and then the solitary elephant welfare, for the solitary elephant to have company. We actually, before we started the survey, thought that that was going to come up very high. And you can see that it wasn't. Respondents or stakeholders actually had quite a lot of other things on their minds, other than just saying, oh, there's one elephant, and you know, they didn't make it just about this elephant. So that was actually quite surprising. So I know that looks a bit deur mekaar, but that's just to show you when we broke down those values or the reasons why people wanted introduction to take place. Those different reasons would be the red, and then the green would be all the different stakeholders that we could identify in the survey. I'm not going to go into detail, we don't have time, but all I wanted to do there is to show you that different stakeholder groups had different associations with different values as to why they wanted introduction. So it wasn't just for one specific thing. So for the group of people, the previous group, there were 333 respondents who said that the existence is important or introduction. So this particular group, only 83 people said something specific about why they did not want introduction to take place. And those are the different reasons. You can see that the first one is more based on management and the liability and the budget and those kind of issues. And then some people thought that the range was suboptimal. And I'm trying to think what else I can highlight. So there were quite a lot of reasons, and you can see the welfare comes up again. Some people were worried for the welfare of elephants coming in or the welfare of the remaining elephant. That's, they won't bond. So there were once again, quite a lot of reasons and values. So we had an open question where we asked, in light of the fact that there's only one elephant, what do you suggest that we do? And once again, there were quite a few suggestions, but these were the major themes that emerged, and people specifically said that they would like SANParks to consider introducing one elephant, an orphaned young elephant or a socially compromised elephant. And then the second highest group was consult specialists, and that's actually something that kept on coming through. There are other questions that I asked, which I didn't have time to show you guys, where it also came out that most of the respondents didn't just want anybody to make this decision. They wanted people in the know, like translocation people or people going to be responsible to make these kind of decisions, and not just anybody who's interested. So that came out quite strong. And then the third group there, it's also something that came out quite strong, that people felt that if this was going to turn out in a circus, then people would rather not want anything to happen. So they didn't want this hands-on kind of business, operation. And then introduce wild herd and introduce tame herd came out similar. And some people said, rather consider range expansion, like don't just consider introducing without considering those kind of issues. And then it was interesting, the second last group said, please no self-interest parties to drive the whole decision. And then consider elephant welfare came up again. So when you look at the expectation for introduction, that's a little bit more crude, and so about 80% of the respondents expected SANParks to look at elephant introduction, and about 20% expected leave as is, and 11 people said either relocate out or euthanize the elephant out of, it was a welfare-driven kind of value. So breaking down once again the yes, no, the introduction versus maintaining status quo in all the different stakeholders. So the orange would be the yes, introduce. So you can see most of the stakeholders expected introduction, and some less than others, but most of them predominantly expected introduction. If you look at the p-value down there, that green bit, I'm not going back. That's just statistically showing that there is a statistical association, and it's probably because of the rural, that group sort of in the middle, rural, that would be people living not right next to the elephant range, but in the area of the elephant range, close to the elephant range. They wanted 100%, and then work would be people that's not SANParks, that would be people who do not work for SANParks, but work in the elephant range. They had the lowest expectation for introduction, because they're in the field all the time. So I looked a little bit at association between some values and expectation. So before we started this survey, I thought that what we most probably will see is that people believe that there are more elephants will not want introduction, say it's not necessary. But these two groups, or the two bars, represent people who think that there are more elephants versus respondents who think or thought that there's only one elephant. And you can see the expectation, the orange is yes, introduce, and the green is no, don't introduce. So there wasn't an association between belief of number and whether people expected introduction of elephants. However, one of the themes that came out quite strong was people, even though we didn't ask them about it, talked quite a bit about where they thought the elephants were historically and where they are now in terms of habitat, and also whether that habitat or where they are is optimal, suboptimal, whether they belong where this elephant is now. So on the y-axis are just the different beliefs or sub-themes in that. And the first group believed that this elephant is fynbos and forest adapted, so they didn't think it was a problem. And the second group thought that elephants were always in the area, not really mentioning a specific habitat type. And then that middle group, range a larger area, also did not mention a specific habitat type. And then the last three groups, what's similar about them is that they all believe that this elephant is only confined to forest only. And which is not true, because this elephant moves in and out of forest and fynbos pretty much every day. So that was what was similar, but that first retreat to suboptimal forest, you can see that there was a very low expectation for introduction, and those are the people who believe that this elephant is only in the forest and she never used to be and she shouldn't be. So there was very much an association. So it was interesting that people didn't associate, or their expectation was not influenced by their belief of number, but it was influenced by their belief of where elephants used to be and where this elephant is now. So, yeah. So in conclusion, there was really a high interest, and there was a strong connection between the Knysna forest and elephant. And unfortunately also with some misperceptions that the elephant lives in this deep dark forest and always used to, or some believe never used to and now only is there, which is a misperception. And then respondents predominantly expected introduction, as you saw, and all groups preferred introduction of one naturally orphaned calf as a management action. And it was also quite interesting that the ecological, cultural, historical values came out much stronger than economic and commercial values. So that was actually also quite interesting. Oops, sorry. So we are now going into this decision-making process, and it was quite nice that some of these perceptions are helping us quite a lot to understand where our stakeholders are in the landscape or where they are. So thank you so much.